is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower. Book 7, The Dark Tower. Part 4, Chapters 3 and 4. The Castle of the Crimson King.
No.
And Hides. Welcome to Unspoiled.
You're not going to say in these chapters?
Yeah, I totally forgot that part.
You don't want to say, like, in these chapters, we learn a bunch of stuff about how to make clothes out of deer skin.
This is the kind of shit... Hi, everybody, I'm Natasha.
I'm Miles. I'm sitting here in my deer hide coat that I made myself with brains.
Did you?
Yeah, I did, actually.
I'm
yeah.
jelly.
I made it. And after I finished the process, I actually wrote a book about it. Just about how to make clothes out of hides. It was fascinating.
This is the kind of shit that I know most people are probably like, we don't need this, but I love this kind of crap. I think, like, I'm very into figuring, like, getting taught how people used to do shit way back when, and that's probably why I loved, like, the Farmer Boy books so much. Did you ever read those?
No, I never did.
Those are some of my faves. And you get taught all kinds of things about how they would, shear sheep and make cheese and just basic farming shit and cutting ice to keep in the ice house over the summer. Shit like that that's just really... What's the word I want? It's fascinating to me because they made things work that you would just think, oh, I guess they just didn't have that back then.
Right.
But they did. They just, like, had to figure it out, and it was 100,000% more effort. So, yeah, I liked this, and I always knew that, like, brains were a part of it, but I was never really, sure what that meant. It's kind of like knowing, oh, yeah, rennet is used to make cheese, and I know that in a vague way, which is why a lot of vegetarians don't like to eat certain cheeses that are still made that way. But it took me a long time before I actually figured out, like, why rennet is used and what it does. And not that he actually really tells us what the brains do, but that's fine. If I'm ever stuck in the woods, I don't need to know why. I just know that it works.
Yeah, I'm not opposed in theory to being educated on something while I read, a fictional story or whatever. In this case, I was just, like, laughing about it the whole time. It's such a weird place in the story to do this. That's
totally fair.
It's like, it is just so strange to take an entire chapter. And not only to take an entire chapter at this point, but after everything we've been talking about for weeks on end with this book, and how it won't explain anything, and there's so much more of it. Like, there's a bunch more in Chapter 3, The Castle of the Crimson King, about, like, I don't know how I know, I just know, and, like, well, this must be because I assume, and there's been such an abandonment of, like, moving to point C by way of points A and B, that to then be like, but you know what I'll bet you really want to know about? How they're gonna make their cold weather clothes. And let me take you through every step. Like, it's fine, but it's like, really? You couldn't have spent this time explaining to me, like, any of the other things that you failed to explain?
No, and like I don't even disagree with you, and I 100%. I'm in the position of Jeremy Slagoth on Twitter, who DM'd me this message the other day and was just like, "Hey, I totally understand y'all's criticisms of this last book, and you're not even wrong. And here's why I love it, because it's really special to me for these particular reasons." And that's where I'm at with this, where I'm like, yeah, no, Miles, you're right. I get it. I don't disagree with you, but also I like it.
That's
so
great.
Yeah, it's but I like I said, I really do get it though. And there was a tiny part of me that was like, really? But also I kind of felt like if he had just been like, they stopped and skinned some animals and wore their hides for warmth, I would have been like, oh, really? They just went ahead and did that, huh? So I feel like this is a situation where he couldn't really win with me.
Yeah.
So I'd rather he aired on this side rather than just being like, me being like, I bet that shit stank because they didn't tan him, did they? Because I would have said that because I'm insufferable that way.
I really think like, okay, if you had done the scene, I like the scene where Susannah shoots the deer.
Yes.
And, like, then has that, like, roar of triumph at the end, because she fucking, like, it's such a great way to get us in the mindset of, like, we're not dealing with how cold everything is anymore. Like, we're past that point. Now there's game. Now we can do our gunslinger thing again and do our survival thing like we were doing way back in, like, book 3. You know, and we're kind of back to that. Like, I think it works really well in that regard. But I think you could have had the scene where she shoots the deer and then, like, screams. And then maybe had, like, I don't know, a page? Like, could you have done it in, like, you know, Roland showed her how to make the hides, which involved taking out brains and, you know, blah, blah, blah. I just feel like he really goes into detail.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So you could have just kind of shortened that shit up a little bit.
I don't know.
I think you're right on that.
It's fine. Like, again, I don't think it's inherently bad. It's just such a weird thing to do at this point in the story.
Yeah, I'm not... I think, too, that this weird emphasis on, like... Well, it's not even an emphasis, but this moment where she's like, she fell asleep that night and slept well because of the feeling of doing it for themselves. And I'm like, they walked through the wilderness for like a month. This isn't new to her. It shouldn't be new to her, right? Like, maybe they didn't tan hides before, but they definitely were like hunting and trapping and just living out off of nothing. So it felt like a peculiar moment to say that to me.
Almost like a page out of someone else's character arc, like...
A little bit.
Like, that would be a thing you'd say for a character who had grown up soft and rich, you know, and now they're finally starting to experience the joys of doing it themselves, where it's like, these people are hardened survivors. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves, as always on this show. But I had to just shout out the entire chapter about making hides.
I like the fact, though, that I did like it after last time being like, ooh, hides, and you made fun of me because I got excited about hides. Well, guess what?
Guess what?
I stand by it, sir.
Hides are exciting. It's fine. You wanna, if you were there, you would have just been like, taking out them brains, mushing them up.
You know?
Yeah. You know, make it a paste.
Yeah, brains are gross. So
yeah, they're weird and disgusting.
Let's talk about the castle. Since
the castle.
You know, that's allegedly the more important part of this.
So, as the chapter begins, Roland and Susannah are approaching the castle of the Crimson King. And there's like, you know, they're in the little town, right? That surrounds the castle. And they start seeing all these weird, like, posters and things. And, you know, a bunch of Memorial Day, 4th of July, America stuff. And also campaign posters from, must have been the 1960 U.S. presidential election, which was contested between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, and, Roland kind of asks her about it, and she's like, yeah, he's like, you know, do you know who won? She's like, yeah, Kennedy won, became Din of the United States. It's fine. I take issue with Susannah's stance on the Bay of Pigs.
Yeah, I wasn't going to get into that, but I thought it stuck out like a sore thumb that was kind of just barely, like, glossed over.
It's just there. She says once he was elected, I guess I should start from the beginning. He told folks when he was running that he meant to change things. Probably less than half the voters thought he meant it, because most politicians lie for the same reason a monkey swings by his tail, which is to say, because he can. But once he was elected, he started in doing the things he promised to do. There was a showdown over a place called Cuba, and he was just as brave as, well, let's just say you would have been pleased to ride with him.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean...
No.
I guess bravery is a word that you could use for being totally ready to go to nuclear war.
Yeah, this was... Yeah. There was a lot about this little moment where I was just kind of like... I guess, white dude, sure, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's. I feel like it's not necessarily out of character, considering that, like, she got most of her political sensibilities while she was Odetta, and Odetta, you know, while she did a lot of great fighting for the civil rights movement, was also, you know, rich and, you know, probably more inclined to not see the kind of dark underside of the Kennedy administration.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not upset about it. It just, like, every time I read it, I'm just like, oh god, oh yeah. Susannah, we should come back to this conversation, Susannah, about Cuba and how brave John F. Kennedy was.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you bringing it up, because I wasn't gonna, but I did notice it for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, after they get done talking about that and the fact that he got assassinated by Oswald, and then Johnson took his place, who she describes Johnson as more of a politician, which I think is interesting, because he was, but Johnson was also one of the few presidents to actually come from a lower class background. Anyway.
Well, she describes him as a go along to get along, which I feel like is more than just being more of a politician. It's also just being kind of weak.
Yeah, I mean, she says he's more the kind of fellow used to play in the game.
Right.
So yeah, they show up at the castle, and there's a banner in the courtyard that says, "Welcome, Roland and Susannah. Oi, too. Keep on rockin' in the free world."
Lol. Yeah, it just really seems mean. I don't like it.
It's weird. It's like, it feels like the end of book 4, almost, when they show up in the Emerald City. Mm-hmm. Like, this feels like something Walter would do, right?
It does, doesn't it?
Maybe he did, like, before he left.
He set this shit up.
Yeah,
I like it. All right, let's go with that.
All right, let's go with that.
Anything that prolongs Walter's life in the book, I'm okay with it.
Right. So they, sorry, but this program is being weird. I hope it's recording okay.
So do I.
Yeah, right. It seems to be recording fine, but there are times when, like, you know how you can see the line moving? The waveform appearing, and there are just times when it's like
delayed.
It's slow.
It's moving, but the waveform takes a minute to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I know exactly what you mean.
So hopefully that doesn't indicate that anything's going wrong with the actual audio.
Usually it just means your computer's running kind of slow for some reason, that you have another app open or something.
Oh my god, my computer today. I don't even want to get into it because it's too insane. So anyway, they go across the courtyard. They come to this bridge. I'm a little bit confused, like, the description of this castle, personally, isn't giving me a great sense of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And, like, the layout, because I keep thinking they're in a courtyard earlier than I guess they actually are. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like they go into the courtyard and then there's a moat?
Yeah, I kind of thought of it as, like like because there are different types of castles, and there are some castles that have like several ring walls. And
Right.
so I pictured it as there being like an outer wall with a big outer courtyard where people would basically have like markets and stuff. And then there's a bridge to get to the actual castle where it's more private. But
Right.
I kind of just invented that in my head based
it
on
works.
like the way that yeah, but it's not based on anything that he gave me. So yeah.
It's a little bit weird, but at any rate, they come to the moat. There's a bridge across the moat, and standing on the other side of the bridge are three dudes who look exactly the same. They all look like Stephen King without the glasses or the beard. Mm-hmm. And two of them carry baskets out to the center of the bridge, put them down. Third one waits behind, and these, we find out, at least at first, are Fumalo, I think it's Fumalo, because I'm assuming it's a fee-fi-fo-fum thing for some reason.
Right.
So, Fumalo, Fumalo, and Fimalo. And Fimalo is the one standing back, and Fumalo and Fumalo are on the bridge, talking to Roland and Susannah. Fumalo's kind of a nice guy, Fumalo's kind of a dick.
Right. And the whole conceit here is that they're like different parts of the ego, superego, id.
Right.
Like they're different parts of our consciousness.
Yeah, Fumalo's the id, so he just like says all the stupid shit that comes to his mind. Mm-hmm. And Fumalo is the ego, and Fimalo is the superego.
Right.
And they claim to be shape changers.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's man, the way that this goes was so bizarre. Like, because first of all, they say, "Oh, we're shape changers," and immediately Roland's like, "Yeah, I doubt that."
Right? Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, like, why this dude, as we find out, it's like one guy casting a glamour over himself and two other dudes. Why he even bothered? Because he like makes up this whole thing about how, we were instructed to take on the shape of somebody that you would trust. To which, again, Roland's like, bad choice. We don't trust this asshole.
Well,
So,
and they were like, well,
it just
we
keeps
do...
being not great choices they're making here.
Yeah, it's... Okay, so... To speak about this in kind of the full context of what's happening, what's actually happening here. Because they say that the Crimson King went crazy because he went crazy when they... did he go crazy when they saved the beam?
Yes. I think that is what he says, right? When he realized that there was not only that the beam was saved, but that it would be able to repair itself and potentially repair the others.
Right.
Which I think is like a new thing that we didn't know was possible.
Right, which is weird because I feel like... I don't know. It doesn't... He basically, everything we learn here is true, except for the fact that these three guys aren't actually three guys.
Right. Oh, well, they are, right? But they're like... They're him, like, the two... I thought it was the two, God, I can't remember. Now I'm having to find the page. Because... And they just are killed, but they have a glamour over them.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Right?
So they're like his assistants, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, okay, that's right. I forgot about that part.
Okay. I was like, did I get all of this wrong?
No, you're right. So, supposedly he basically says the Crimson King went crazy, and killed everybody here, and except for us, me, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then he killed himself, and he killed himself because he's immortal, so he can't actually die. But if he makes himself undead, then Roland can't kill him with his guns made out of Excalibur as foretold in the prophecy.
Yeah.
Again, I just want to point out that we find out that Roland's guns are made out of Excalibur. At least it's confirmed. Like, that had been mentioned, I think. we find out that there's a prophecy that they can kill the Crimson King. This is the first we're hearing about it, and the next chapter is all about making hides.
Yeah.
just
His
pointing that out.
priorities are not real straight.
But yeah, it turns out that the only person the Crimson King didn't kill, his name is Los, apparently, by the way, with an apostrophe after the S for no reason.
Right.
And this dude's name... Okay. This dude's name... It's gotta build up to this. The guy they're talking to goes by the name of Rando Thoughtful.
Yeah.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Rando Thoughtful.
That was me trying to do the drama sting after you announced it. Didn't really work out so well.
Oh, I missed our soundboard.
How about this?
You suck! Yeah, you do! You suck because your name is Rando Thoughtful, and that's the worst name.
Oh, God.
What is even happening?
Yeah, there's like... Alright, I'm going to bring up something that really doesn't have anything to do with where we are right now, but we've talked about this before, this bizarre thing that King does where he like uses weird words for things that he kind of should have stayed away from, or just that are distracting, and you're like, why do you keep choosing this? This name is a really weird one. And it's super distracting, in my opinion. And then there's this thing that he keeps doing where he has, so we didn't actually even talk about this last episode, but Susannah's having this recurring dream that she's back in New York and she's having hot cocoa and Eddie and Jake are there.
Yes.
Right? And she has this in the last couple chapters we did, but we didn't really talk about it because mostly it felt like nothing. But he has her drinking the hot cocoa.
With the meatschlag.
And he keeps talking about meatschlag, which I am convinced that this is something that he like learned a week before he wrote these chapters. And he just couldn't let it go. Like, do you ever have that where you find out a new phrase or a new way of saying something and all of a sudden you just say it to death until everybody hates you? And I feel like that's what he's doing with this because honestly, there's no reason for that. Have you ever heard that in your life? Ever? From anybody? Yeah.
Yes, but not often. Like, I have heard of it.
I have never heard it. I am a foodie, and I'm from the Northeast, where she is allegedly from. This isn't a thing. Not at all. And I don't know why it keeps coming up. And also, it's also like kind of a weird thing like, oh, the perfect kind with whipped cream, where most people, the perfect kind is with marshmallows. Am I crazy?
Of hot chocolate?
Yeah, right?
I mean,
When you think hot chocolate, you think marshmallows. Like, even if you would rather have whipped cream, that's what you think of first, right?
So, I think of, I think for me personally, like, I don't think of marshmallows just because we never did that.
Mm-hmm.
But, I do associate marshmallows with hot chocolate because it was one of Calvin's favorite things in Calvin and Hobbes.
Aw.
So, I do remember that because of that comic strip, yeah.
I don't even, like, and, you know, setting aside the marshmallows versus whipped cream thing, it's fine. It's just a weird thing that he keeps saying that I had to go look up because I didn't know what it meant, and then I thought it was going to be something really specific, and it was just with whipped cream. That's fucking it? Really? Really? Guy, why? Why do you do this, dude? Why do you gotta be extra with everything, and then the shit that we want extra of, you just don't care. But yeah, rando thoughtful. Rando
thoughtful.
It's here. Like, did he like have a fucking sweepstakes for a reader to just put a name into one of his books?
Well, that's the greatest thing about it, too, from a perspective of in the narrative, because this dude changed his name to Rando Thoughtful. Right. His name was something else. It was like Austin. I'm pretty sure it was Austin.
I think you're right, because I read that and I snorted just like that when I found out. Because I didn't know a single Austin before I moved to Texas, and now I know 6 Austins. And I'm just like, guys, y'all need to chill out.
Oh, yeah.
Too many of them.
It fucking reminds me of what's the Robin Hood Men in Tights line? You changed your name to Latrine? Yeah, it used to be Shithouse.
Oh, I forgot about that.
But his name didn't used to be Shithouse. His name used to be Normal, and he changed it to Rando Thoughtful.
I'm trying to find, because somebody sent me... All right, continue. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find... Somebody sent me... Oh, here it is. Adam Schoenfarber? Is that you that sent me some messages about the old Dark Tower? My friggin' Facebook messages is so annoying. Okay, so here's the thing he wrote. He said, I just listened to this week's episode. I thought about your wish for a place like the idealized Hammarskjöld Plaza. I think you've mentioned before that Hammarskjöld Plaza is a real place. I don't think. You might have?
Maybe.
I don't remember doing it, but maybe I asked if it was.
Yeah, I think we did talk about it once, actually.
He says, I live in New York and nowhere near the place, but I was working in home care, so when I was covering for a coworker, I had to go over to the east side to visit one of her patients. I happened to sit down in a little corporate public art space to document and spend a pleasant few hours, unaware I was sitting near the rows. Now, heads up, I'm one of those DT readers. I read Gunslinger in the early libraries, took Drawing and Wastelands hardcovers out of my public library, read the early release prologue to Wolves, pre-ordered SOS and DT in college, and skipped finals to read them.
Oh, you're one of those.
Anyway, my point was there's something weird and comfortable about Hammarskjöld. I've been back since, knowingly, and every time I've been happy to know that some fake-ass universe is safe and I get to enjoy an iced coffee in peace. And then says, your observations that the back 3 books feel like fan fiction feels 1,000% true. And that is exactly what I liked about them at the time. King was writing again, and his writing was as off the wall as the writing of the fan community. We would write, who would win in a fight, Harry Potter or Jake Chambers? Hey, what's up, Smash Fiction? Then, holy shit, snitches are actual canon. It captured a moment as much as a conclusion, which is why I think it worked on publication with significant your mileage may vary for everyone. And even when you're frustrated with the media, I appreciate you trying to maintain a balance for the kind of fans that think the author and showrunner can do nothing wrong. Sam Johnson said, I would rather be attacked than unnoticed, for the worst thing you can do to an author is be silent as to his works.
Oh, there's no silence going on here.
Not being silent, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, I mean, was there something you were building up to with this, or you just?
No, I just wanted to mention because I said that, like, did he have a sweepstakes about the name that they let? Because there's so many things that I have felt along the way that it feels like somebody like I said, fan fiction, like somebody just took some characters and did some weird shit with them. And I just wanted to read this person who was like following the series as it came out says that, that is what it felt like to me, and that's what I liked about it.
At the time, it was great, especially because you didn't know if he was ever going to write again. So,
right.
Yeah, and it's like, it's so funny, because this is really, the more we cover this series, the more I feel like this part of the story just hasn't aged well. Like, this is such a you had to be there series at this point, right? It's like, you almost can't, it almost feels unfair to go back and analyze it. Because if you were there, if you were one of the people living through it in the moment, it's like you had this whole outside crop of feelings that didn't have anything to do with the narrative.
Right.
That, like, was influencing how you felt about it. And now it's like we get to go back and be like, okay, well, actually, like, you know, the dude doesn't know how to structure a story. But, you know, but, like, I'm sure to him, to King, and to the people reading these books, like, it was enough that it existed. Yeah. Like, what if Winds of Winter comes out and it's garbage? Like, I don't know. A lot of people felt that way about A Dance with Dragons. I think it's a great book. But, like, even the people who didn't like A Dance with Dragons were still happy that it had come out. Right. You know? Like,
I don't see that, though. I don't think that's going to happen. I think people are going to be assholes about it.
Well, like, if it's bad?
Yeah, I think people are going to be like, really? We waited 10 years for this piece of shit? What have you been doing? Yeah. I was hoping that this would be better than the show, but frankly, now I guess I'd rather pretend the show was canon. I predict all of these comments.
I mean, sure, that is legitimately fair. I will. I mean, if I guess really the problem is the internet exists now.
What's that?
So I guess the problem really is that the internet exists now.
Yeah, that's true. It's become much more of a thing. With much more focus.
So much easier to complain about something. But yeah, it's just. We don't want to shit on anyone's experience, as we've said before. If you're one of those people who, like, followed this series as it came out and were just, like, so happy that the Dark Tower series got an ending that you had no interest in thinking about it, you know, negatively or critically or whatever. And, like, here we come along to tell you how much it sucks. But, like, and I'm sorry for that. But, guys, his name is fucking Rando Thoughtful. Like, the fact that this was such a huge thing in the moment does not change the fact that Stephen King named a fucking character Rando fucking Thoughtful.
I think there's really something to be said, too, for the fact that, like, when you are waiting for a book like these, you're expecting shit to be off the wall. I mean, they're going to a tower that's like the center of the universe with actual beams that hold up the fucking existence of consciousness. Yeah, it's going to be real weird. With George R. R. Martin, it's an intricate, like, human story in a lot of ways. So it feels much more like, if you go too off the wall with this, I'm not even going to know what you're doing. So I feel like for this series, I can understand people being a lot more forgiving initially. It's kind of like how I feel about a ton of Christopher Nolan movies, where I am in the moment watching it going, God, this is really good. Right. And afterwards I'm like, what the fuck was that? I got totally bamboozled. Yeah. Like, I enjoy it so much as I'm watching it. I'm walking out of the theater going, yeah, wow, that was... And then I'm almost home in the car going, hold on. That didn't fucking make any sense. Right. And, but while I'm watching it, it's great.
Right. And so, again, yeah. We've talked about this before, too, about, like, so much of a product of how we're reading this book and talking about this book is a product of the fact that, like, we are taking this couple chapters at a time and, like, really slowing down and not getting into
not tearing through shit in one night when we're supposed to be at finals, guys.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, that's true.
Anyway, Rando Thoughtful is the guy's name, and it is the worst name that anyone... I can't think of a worse one. If you guys have any worse names than Rando Thoughtful, you can hit me up on Twitter. But... So we learn, basically, to get back to what we're actually learning in this section, the Crimson King went crazy when he realized that the beams were going to repair themselves, smashed all of his wizard's rainbow orbs, which I guess he had 6?
Yeah, that seems unfair.
smashed them all, killed his entire staff by feeding them rat poison, and then sharpened a spoon and swallowed it.
Why?
I mean, I guess he's crazy, right?
That's a lame thing, though. Just be like, I don't know, he crazy. Like, give me something. Because he, acts like he's about to explain why, and then his explanation is basically nothing also.
I want to know why it's a spoon. Why did you have to sharpen a spoon? Do you not have knives?
You know? I have so many questions about that whole thing. And the honestly, until I came across the actual, drawing, because even in the Kindle version, you have the illustrations from the book, until I came across the drawing of the Crimson King on a throne of actual skulls, I thought that shit was a joke. Oh yeah, he was sitting on his throne and it was made of skulls, too. I thought he was fucking with us, being like, oh yeah, he's such a big bad guy, even sits on a throne of skulls. And then it turns out, no, that's, supposed to be a real thing. And I was just like, alright, it's sort of... I think I want this story, in some ways, to be a little bit different than what it really is. And I want it to be, a trippy, similar to George R. R. Martin's, human story. And instead, I'm realizing, no, this is a broad strokes hero-villain, saga that doesn't really do what it led me to believe it was going to do in the first 3 books. It sort of pulled back from that and decided to be this, grander and more based and rooted in archetypes.
Well, yeah,
than,
Yeah, when you decide your story is going to be about all of existence, and your story is going to be about all your other books and weaving them together and everything, there's almost no room for non-archetypical, small stroke characters.
I don't agree with that.
Assuming, of course, that, you have to have the hides chapter, where you just talk about making hides the whole time. Mm-hmm. You almost have to broaden the characters, don't you? You don't think so?
No, I don't. I think you can have what looks like a broad character and then surprise us with little things that are not what you expect. And that gives them depth. But I feel like he's chosen to really go easy a little bit and have the bad guy literally be a man who poisons his staff sitting on a throne of skulls dressed in red, who is now undead. And there's a literal, a demon spawn spider scion chasing them. He has named the son Mordred, and his gun is made from Excalibur. It doesn't really get much broader than that. That's
true.
It's just so much more so than I expected, and I think it's because I say more than I expected as if I didn't have the right to think that, but he led me to think that. And then really, I feel, pulled back and was like, you know what? I'm getting too into this. I need to simplify it. And I frankly think that he was too deep to do that and have it really make sense. And I feel like that's part of why he got rid of Flag, is because he's just Flag was too complex and strange. And he wanted somebody who was just a bad guy. No charm, no weird agenda that you don't really understand. Just bad dude who wants to destroy either Roland or the universe. And yeah, Flag was just sort of toying with him, and that really wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't really disagree with you. I think we're circling around the same point, which is just that the story became different when he came back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't the story that we wanted. It is very, like... Because so much of this, like, comes out of... everything you're talking about, like, the search for the tower and how it's this big quest and everything, like... They talked about looking for the tower in the first 4 books, but it was never a thing. Like, they were following the path of the beam ostensibly to get to the Dark Tower eventually.
Right.
But the story was about kind of who they were and the adventures they were having along the way, and it's like, you have a goal, which is to keep the characters moving, but it was kind of, it was the story about, especially in The Wastelands, which is widely considered to be the best book, it was just kind of a story about people traveling and, like, the shit they encountered along the way. And so when it became Arthurian, when it became a giant, all-encompassing, sweeping quest narrative, I think it lost something.
Agreed. And
that's not to say it didn't gain something for some readers, because I think a lot of people really like that. A lot of people really like the huge, grandiose mythology of it all. Like, the fact that there's a fucking concordance where you can, like, they sell a book to help you figure out how this series relates to all the other books that he's written. Like, that really appeals to people in some way. But, and so you gain an epic quality that may not have been there before. You gain this real, just huge sense that the story is super important. But I do think you lose some sort of intimacy with the characters. I think we lost touch with some of the characters at some point, because it seemed like King lost touch with them. It seems like sometime while he was writing Wolves of the Kala, he just kind of forgot who Susannah was, and and really, like, the whole thing with Jake having the touch so strongly, it's just like he kind of, he lost it a little bit. He lost that connection, and it feels like 2 different series in so many ways. So yeah, I think that, here we are. It's the Crimson King. Like, this is the story we're in. Blood for the Blood God, skulls for the Skull Throne, and fucking this dude, like, it killed himself so that Roland couldn't kill him first. And that's where we're at, It's just, and I don't love it. It's not the kind of story I really enjoy reading, especially not when it feels like it should have been something else, which I think is the big part of it, right? Because if it started off this way, then it would be one thing. You knew what you were getting into. But for it to transition at the midpoint is jarring and feels slightly traitorous on King's part. But that's where we're at.
Yeah, I feel like the tower felt like this real circumstantial thing, where, as you said, it was more about these people, like, fighting to get to something. And there's a you still haven't watched Westworld, have you?
No.
There's a character in Westworld who is looking for something and is so fucking ruthless about it and will not let anybody stand in his way. And everything is sort of organized around him finding the thing.
Okay.
And it's really about him feeling empty somewhere and seeking an external validation of some kind. And that's what I kind of thought was going to happen with Roland, was that the tower was going to be metaphorical. And it, it might be like a literal place that he could actually go to, but even if it were, it wasn't going to be what he had hoped or expected, even though it doesn't really seem like he has a specific hope or expectation. And
I want to talk about that later. Yeah,
just going to be like his journey and, like, growth, which we have seen, of finally reaching a point where he cared about Jake enough that he would have sacrificed the tower to save Jake.
Yeah,
he would have done that. And so I like that we have that moment, but it doesn't really feel like it comes to anything when And that's part of, like, getting rid of Jake and getting rid of Eddie, I think, we're working towards the same goal of streamlining everything. And then we get this moment with Susannah where she's in the dream and they're like, that Roland has to go on his own. And I'm like, really? Are we going to do this? So she came all this fucking way and she's supposed to just let him continue on because King reconsidered how he wanted this to go? Or I don't know. And I can't say that yet, but that's what it's looking like right now. And I'm just kind of like, so you're acting like all of these people were just tools for him to get where he's at, which feels like it's validating how Roland, what his attitude was originally like, which was a shitty attitude to have. So I don't want that validated. I don't like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm being turned in weird circles with this so far.
I understand, and I think we'll have plenty of opportunity to talk a lot about this more, but I will say that I think the book starts to the series, I should say, the series really starts to fall apart for me when King decides he's going to start killing the Quartet. Because that is the interesting thing. For me, the Quartet, Roland, Eddie, Susannah, Jake, and Oy, are the heart of the book. And what interests me is these people and their relationships with each other. Mm-hmm. And when you start foreshadowing that you're going to kill them, and when you start actually killing them, of course, we know Eddie's not actually dead. But, Jake definitely is. But when you start doing that, you're just like, there's this feeling of like, oh, like, well, what's left? Like, I guess now I have to care about the tower. Yeah. And now I have to care about Mordred and the Crimson King and all these elements that just feel tacked on, that just feel like they don't belong. Like mm-hmm. they come out of some different story that he was writing, Yep. And so it's just a shame. Like I don't. As soon as Eddie gets shot, as soon as they start playing, I think as soon as they start doing the whole Kashum thing before the battle, it's just like, if you start feeling like, okay, well, he's not really, you were so incredulous. He's not really going to kill Eddie. Mm-hmm. You still don't think Eddie's dead. I can hear it in your voice.
I really kind of don't.
I know you don't.
Like, and I think I wrote in a recent installment, like the blog post that goes with the show, I was just like, so I guess Eddie's really dead? Question mark? Like, still, yeah.
But, like, you feel like part of the reason I think it felt so disingenuous to kill him was it's like, what are you going to do after that? Like, if you break the group, then what's left? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, and what's left is, you get these dudes talking about the fucking Crimson King. They explain. I do want to go over this. What they actually say happened. So the Crimson King went crazy. He smashed all the balls. Like I said, he killed himself, ran off to the tower, and we get confirmation that he is in fact trapped in the tower, or as Roland says, on the balcony outside the tower. And there's only one way that anyone can tell that he might be able to get back inside. And it's very important that the Crimson King not actually climb to the top of the tower. Because what they said is, the beams are repairing themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Then eventually what has moved on might return again. Perhaps Midworld and Inworld. Perhaps even Gilead, the Light, the White. No perhaps about it, Phimalo said, for Ka is a wheel, and if a wheel be not broken, it will always roll. Unless the Crimson King can become either the Lord of the Tower or its Lord High Executioner, all that was will eventually return. And the only thing that can help the Crimson King that we know of escape from the balcony and actually get into the tower are, what is it, the sigils of the Eld.
Right.
Which I think are the guns, right?
Yes.
So, what these guys are saying, what Rando Thoughtful is saying, is fucking stop looking for the tower. Because you're gonna bring him the guns, and that's what he wants. And really, if you just stop, everything will be fine.
Right.
And Roland's like, no. So, there's that.
Yeah.
So then these guys are like, all right, well, we tried, and we had made a commitment to ourselves that if we couldn't convince you to stop going after the tower, we would help you along your way. For no reason.
Yeah.
But here's these baskets. One of them has food, and the other one has clothes. And it's really... I don't know how you felt about this, but, like, the fact that this was a trick about the baskets and the clothes, I feel like was really telegraphed.
It's crazy to me that the, like, lack of effort he put into this bamboozle. Like, all he basically is like, we work for the baddie. He gave us our orders. We totally stayed here in this abandoned castle full of dead for orders that we really don't actually care about, though, we swear. So here's some helpful stuff. What? Did he think this was going to work?
Even though we just finished explaining to you why you shouldn't be allowed to continue.
And why he's, like, definitely super scary to us.
Right.
Like, there's so much about the setup of this that doesn't internally make any sense. And the fact that Susannah even thought about going for it baffles me. Like, the one thing I can say is that, you know, she's freezing and she's hungry, so fine. But like, all of that really is, like, so overwhelming that, but this doesn't seem right. It's like a distant second in her mind.
Well, what fucking kills me about it is that a couple of chapters ago, he was like, hey, we're going to be tempted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, before the prize comes temptation.
Yeah.
And then, before they get to the castle, he's like, hey, remember what I said about how we're going to be tempted?
Right.
And it's like, okay, so clear, again, what we're complaining about here is merely the fact that this is all very simplistic. It's very fairy tale. It's very, you know, like, there's little in the way of sophisticated storytelling here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the complaint. Is not that it's a bad story necessarily. It's just told very simply. It's like, Roland's like, we're going to be tempted. Susannah's like, oh, okay. And then these guys are like, hey, temptation.
Yeah.
And Susannah's like, well, maybe we should... Oh, wait, no, temptation.
Oh, I just remembered.
So,
even though it's been all we've practically thought and talked about.
Yeah, it's just very... It's just not hard. All this is very easy to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it turns out, of course, that one of the baskets holds body parts with maggots, and the other one has snakes. And Roland and Susannah kill the two dudes, offering it to them, and then we find out that Rando Thoughtful is actually this guy, and he was actually telling the truth about everything, for the most part, except for the fact that, like, he was not who he said he was.
Mm-hmm. Can I just say that all of the scarves and everything being snakes is just so rude. Like,
it's pretty brutal.
Any other writer, it would have been like it was full of dead leaves. It was ash. It was stones. No, it's severed fucking body parts and fucking half dead, not just snakes, but like knots of snakes. Yup.
You cannot kill a creature that has killed itself. Nor can you enter the Dark Tower, for there is only one entrance, and the balcony upon which Los is imprisoned commands it, and he's armed with a sufficiency of weapons. The Sneeches alone would seek you out and slay you before you'd crossed halfway through the Field of Roses. Roland's like, we'll take care of that, shut up.
Right.
And he says, I have a message from Mordred. Tell him that I'm old and crafty while he's but young. Tell him that if he lies back, he may live a while yet with his dreams of revenge, although what I've done to him, requiring his vengeance, I know not. And tell him that if he comes forward, I'll kill him, as I intend to kill his Red Father. So, yeah, that's what happens there. They leave. And also, I don't want to mention this, but, like, they keep calling her Lady Blackbird.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm fine with it. Like, when it was the id guy saying it.
Right.
Like, that made sense to me, because he was the only one calling her that. But when the real dude says it, I was like, Rando? Really?
I
really,
love
Rando?
that you say his name every time.
Because
it really does sound like a placeholder when you can't remember a character's name. Like, frankly, I am not convinced that's not what King put in and then forgot to edit it out and was just like, yeah, alright, fine. I guess I'll go with it.
I guess he's Rando thoughtful. Yeah, it's just a little rough. And they leave, and he's like, stay away from the Dark Tower! And they're like, we're not staying away from the Dark Tower, shut up. Yeah. Then the dude gets eaten by Mordred.
Yay!
Yay! Mordred has survived somehow all of this same thing that Roland and Susannah have been surviving. He's kind of fucked up. We had a vote today on Twitter come in. I believe Sweet Dog commented on Twitter that coming down on my side of the hot weather versus cold weather debate.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mordred might be on your side of that debate, Natasha, judging by how he's feeling right now.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear to everybody that I'm part spider. So
right,
that's probably what it is.
That makes sense.
Us spiders are just a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah. I mean, he's not doing too well. He's growing fast. I think they say he looks like a 9-year-old now, but he looks like kind of starved and fucking malnourished, and his shoes are falling apart, and his jacket's falling apart. But he gets to feel better because he gets to eat Rando Thoughtful here.
Which, you gotta make lemonade.
Yeah.
Good for you, guy.
Yeah. He just kind of eats him. Like, they talk for a minute.
He just kind of eats him. He has the fucking, like, he's got this preoccupation with getting somebody's eyes first. Because he had the last dude, Flag, dig out his own eyes. And he tried to get him to rip out his own tongue, but that didn't work. Right. And this dude, he's like, calls down the rooks and has them tear his eyes out.
Yeah, they're like, he's like, you can have the eyes.
Yeah. In his benevolence.
What was the, there's some bit here where, I don't know, everywhere where, because Roland had talked about, like laying a trap for Mordred in the castle.
Right.
And he just kind of, like, goes away from that idea, because it's like he wouldn't have worked. I'm trying to see what he says. There's so much more of the same old shit here. Fucking...
I'm going to say something and then I'm not going to do it. And saying it in the first place was weirdly confusing, but then saying it and not doing it is even more confusing.
Yeah, that, and also just like, will there be game as early as day after tomorrow? Yes. How do you know? He considered this, then shook his head. I can't say, but I do. Can you smell it? No. Touch their minds? It's not that either. She let it go. And then, like, a paragraph later, it's like, tomorrow will be further from Le Casa Roy Roost than even Mordred could persuade them to go. How do you know that? He shook his head yet again, although he thought he knew the answer to her question. What he knew came from the tower. Blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
It's just getting old. I'm sorry.
I don't blame you, sir.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Also, she still has a pimple, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a tumor. A blood tumor.
Yeah, she wants him to cut it off if it gets too bad. Which he, like, promises to do, and then when she's like, hey, cut it off, he's like, no. Which I thought was funny. But yeah, then that's basically, like, they get through, like, 3 fucking terrible days of cold and hunger, and then finally they get out to a great place where they can make hides. There's a really nice bit here at the beginning of the hides chapter that I really enjoyed, where she's like, it's like when she's at her most miserable, and she's like, well, you know, this can't be worse than lying there watching Eddie die, and then she has to reckon with, like, yeah, actually it is.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that bit.
Yeah, me too, because it is the kind of thing that, like, you think nothing can be worse than that, but as she puts it, the fact that you're so at the mercy of your body when it comes right down to it, and being made uncomfortable to this degree. Like, I've been shaking for so long from cold that my body is sore the next day from the muscles being tight and me, like, trembling, that I have a sore, like, back and arms from it.
Right.
And there's certain things, even though you want the emotional thing to take its toll, and it sure will, it's, like, so much easier to bury emotional stuff and make yourself ignore it than it is to bury physical stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's like when you're, at least when it's emotional, you know, you feel like at least you should have some control over it.
Right.
Like, I can try to make myself stop feeling this way, or I can at least take my mind off of it. Like, when something's happening to you physically, it's like, well, it's happening.
Yeah.
And there's not much I can do to pretend it's not. So yeah, that's a good bit. Mordred keeps following them. He's not doing so well. I guess we're supposed to be sympathizing with him a little bit. I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah, it's a weird... He's doing some weird stuff. I don't know what the deal is with Morgan, you hear me? Mordred. But
he's hungry and cold and alone, and he starts to cry.
Like, good? Whatever. I just constantly wonder what the fuck he was thinking here. You know?
I mean, yeah, it's one thing to bring in Mordred the way he does. And we talked about how, you know, it seemed like Mordred was meant to replace Walter or Flag as, like, the villain of the piece. But now, in the space of the same book, the Crimson King has kind of replaced Mordred as the villain of the piece.
Yeah.
And now Mordred is just kind of pathetic. And it just really makes you wonder why he's even here.
I've been wondering.
I know.
I done said it.
I know.
It was just a strange... I don't know. All right.
Anyway.
I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with that.
Let's move on to the hides, because you want to talk about the hides. I know you do.
Yes.
Talk about how they make fucking clothes for like 20 pages.
It's like... Well, first of all, you pointed out the hunting scene where Roland is, like, driving the deer toward her.
Oh,
and
great.
She nails one in the head, and she's, like, overcome with that bloodlust.
Yeah.
And is, like, so happy to feel it again, but also is feeling guilty that she can feel it, and the boys are gone, and they can't feel it anymore, which I really get. I kind of like that moment. There is a certain amount of guilt for just, like, being alive when other people are no longer alive.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just really like the brutality of what they have to do to make these clothes. Like, it's a real sacrifice of time and energy and their bodies, because they beat their hands up so bad with scraping and sewing, and she has to make these like weird temporary thimbles out of hide tied around her fingers. And I love the moment where she's like, yeah, her sewing was way better than his, and she was worried that if she undid it and redid it, that he would take offense, because men were proud. And I'm like, you mean delicate. The word you're looking for is fragile.
I do also love the bit where, like, he basically says a prayer.
Yeah.
Like, to thank the deer, essentially, for what they're giving them. I really like that. Yeah,
that was something my grandmother always did after she would cut flowers and herbs from her garden. She would say a little prayer to, like, the flower fairies, is the way that she phrased it to me when I was a kid. And I always kind of liked that. Just treating things like they are giving you something.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me, too.
And yeah, I always like when characters get something they really need, too. So I think that's part of my satisfaction with this, is that they've been so cold for so long, and they're finally in a position to get what they want. And they sit down and take the time and suit up. And so there's a certain amount of, like, just me liking my creature comforts, taking satisfaction in my characters getting their creature comforts finally, you know?
Yeah. What do you think about Roland just, like, biting into a kidney like it's a fucking apple?
Unsurprised. If anybody can do that, that'd be Roland.
Right. Yeah, and he does it to cure his cough, apparently, which he says works.
Yeah. Which, okay, I guess.
Eating kidney? Is that a common cough cure?
I've never heard that myself, but I'm no expert.
Yeah.
So.
So yeah, it's just kind of like it's a really detailed, like, every step of this process, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she takes something that's kind of like quartz and breaks it to make little knives, and they skin, and they tan, and they roast, and they just smoke, absolutely. I do like the bit where it starts to smell like leather to her.
Yeah.
And she starts to kind of enjoy the process. That was really neat.
Yeah.
But I still just can't get over. I'm still having a hard time getting over that the entire chapter is spent making hides, but it is really well written.
Yeah, I agree. Like, but it is another instance of not only just why are you doing this, but it does feel like it's from another book. There's just weird stuff, man, going on. I don't know.
It's just, I mean, you know. Oh, you mentioned the bit about how she thinks, like, the satisfaction of a hard job, like work done by yourself, like hard work well done.
Mm-hmm.
And she thinks immediately after that, Jesus, I think I'm becoming a Republican in my old age.
Yeah, I liked that.
I enjoyed. As someone who is getting older and going like, not quite as liberal. Still pretty liberal.
Yeah, I'm getting more quite. So.
You're getting more liberal as you age?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I'm becoming a fucking, like, comrade over here.
I mean, I think, I definitely, I kind of was that, and I think for me it's more of like a, I'm less prepared to die for the cause now because I'm married.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, very, interesting that Republican maintains an association with doing hard work yourself as opposed to getting handouts from the government.
Lol.
So yeah, then she asked him to cut off the fucking pimple, and he's like, no, because it's a bad idea, and we'll wait until it gets worse, basically.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then she has another dream when they're all done, basically, and and she dreams of Eddie and Jake again. They're wearing different sweatshirts this time. One says, "I drink Nozzle," and the other says, "I drive the Takuro Spirit."
Yeah.
Which is fun, because we found out that Rando Thoughtful in his former life worked on those ad campaigns.
I forgot about that.
Which I liked. They say, "Beware of Dandelo." They say the name Patrick Danville.
This guy, like... I really want to care about Dandelo, I swear. I swear I do, but, like, I just can't get invested in things lately. I just don't... You can't be introducing this kind of shit at this point, guy.
It's really... It's tough stuff.
I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out on caring about things that don't pan out into anything. And I just... Like, are they supposed to be the same person? Like, the Dan at the beginning, is he like a fucking mutant of himself? And now he's called Dandelion? I tried running the word backwards to see if it spelled anything. It doesn't. I was like, is it an anagram? Is it... I don't know.
You know what's interesting? Because when the 7th Harry Potter book came out, I remember people talking about having a hard time with the Horcruxes.
Yeah.
Because they really seem to come out of nowhere.
Do you mean the Horcruxes or the Deathly Hallows?
I guess the Hallows, actually, but...
Because the Horcruxes got set up a bit.
In, like, but like, the last 2 books kind of set up all these things, right? Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows really bring in all this kind of new shit.
Yeah.
That wasn't referenced or mentioned earlier. But the interesting thing about Harry Potter is if you go back and you read the early stuff, like, it is totally fucking foreshadowed.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yep.
I know you guys have been doing your reread, and, like, it's crazy how much the stuff coming into the 6th and 7th books are foreshadowed in the first few chapters of book 1.
Yep.
And it's like, that is such a great example of planning, and, like, and even if she didn't know, like, here's my thing. Even if Rowling wrote the first book without having the whole plan set out, which I don't think she did. I'm pretty sure she's talked about the fact that she had everything laid out, at least the broad strokes of it.
Right.
But even if she hadn't, the fact of the matter was, like, if she didn't have it laid out, she went back and she looked at what she'd written and she's like, what can I do with this? And it makes sense. It's a cohesive narrative. And it's just, and with this, it's just like, you know, you're just slapping, again, you're tacking shit on.
Yeah.
Gotta end the story somehow, tack it on. Gotta, you know, like, anyway. I don't want to go on another rant. But that's how this chapter ends. With the dream, she says that there was only one hat in this dream, and I was wearing it. Because she's wearing the hat that Eddie and Jake were wearing, and Eddie says, it could be your hat if you want it. And Jake says, no more twins, there's only one hat, do you not see?
No, I don't see.
No, I don't see either. But that's the dream, and when they wake up, that's the end of the chapter.
Like, all I could think was like, can she get rid of her other personalities now? Is that what he's trying to say? But that's not really twins. I don't know. No. And I'm surprised he didn't say twims. God knows.
God, yeah. I mean, again, say it almost every week now, but it feels so shitty to just be ragging on this book. But guys, it's not great. It's just really, it feels like a book that he wrote when he was panicked.
Right.
You know? And I don't think that's even true, but that's the feeling you get from it. It's like, what can I do? Put words on paper and nobody edits it.
Yeah, that's the main thing to me, is that even if King went this off the rails, what really shocks me is that nobody called him on it at all. Like,
yeah, it's bizarre.
The only thing that I can imagine, which would be hilarious, and I want to read it, is if it was worse than this. And they really got him to rein it in, and we think they didn't, just because of how wild it is.
Right.
Like, God only knows, but at this point, I'm just sitting here like, I don't know what y'all were doing. You guys are supposed to, like, have his back, editors.
Right.
Where you been?
That's what you're for.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And these recurring dreams, I don't know what to do with. The Dandelo thing, Dandelo, however you want to say it.
Dandelo.
That's how I pronounce it in my head because I think of dandelion.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, maybe he's a flower. I don't know. But I'm concerned that whatever Dandelo is, mainly my concern now is for Oi. Because I feel like Oi's gotta go. I feel like if Susannah's not supposed to reach the end with Roland, I really don't think Oi is either. And, like, I want him to. Don't get me wrong. You all know. Not just because of that, though, but because I kind of like the idea of a dude with his pet making it to the end of the universe. But Oi isn't his. You know?
Yeah.
It just wouldn't feel right to me.
I mean, Oi belongs to himself, but if he's anyone's, he's Jake's.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, Oi is not Roland's pet. And
no.
I don't know. I want him to be okay, but unless we have Susannah getting out and taking Oi with her, I really think the only thing that's going to happen is Oi dies. And the one thing I will say is that if he dies in any way other than being eaten by Mordred, I will be mostly okay with that. But if Mordred eats him, I am going to flip my shit. And I will stop reading this book.
You will not.
I might. Mordred does not deserve Oi. And frankly, he absorbs people's, like, thoughts and memories and shit in this way that's real bullshit. Because he, like, has thoughts and memories of from the dude that he just ate back at the castle, but I can't remember the exact moment. I should have highlighted it. But there's something that, like, he thinks to himself, I wonder about this. And that guy would have known the answer. But he can't come up with the answer. And yet another question he asks himself later, and he knows because the dude knew. It's a very selective thing that is not consistent at all and not well defined at all. And I just don't really understand the need to add it. But
it's a problem. I mean, I heard someone say recently, I think this was also in reference to Harry Potter, actually, that in fantasy stories you kind of live or die by whether or not you've built a world that runs on established, consistent rules. And it doesn't matter what the rules are, it doesn't matter how crazy the world is or how much magic there is, but it has to run on a set of rules that don't change.
Yeah.
And, the rules changing is sort of the nature of the Dark Tower series, but unfortunately that doesn't lend itself well to a cohesive narrative a lot of the time. And you start doing what we've been doing. You stop taking things on faith. You start questioning. You stop being immersed, because you're wondering, well, how does this work? Like, I don't have a clear sense of how this works, so what's going on here?
Yeah.
And you're so focused on that you can't, that it's harder to enjoy things like like the hiding process, you know?
That's part of my problem with something like Orphan Black also, where there's like this huge conspiracy and they're constantly under watch, except everybody congregates at this one dude's apartment and nobody ever seems to survey that place. Like, it's like the most obvious thing, but it's really inconsistent. People are constantly, like, there's cameras everywhere and there's spies everywhere, except when there isn't. And it's just kind of like, well, you know, and that, yeah, gotta be consistent with shit, guys. And I just don't care enough about Mordred for that power to even be worth me wasting the energy to even be that mad about it.
Sounds like the end of John Wick 2.
Oh, shit.
And everybody's the assassin or whatever.
That's a good movie.
Don't
you dare.
I'm the only person on the planet who doesn't like the John Wick movies, so we don't have to get into it now.
Yeah, don't you do this to me.
But I don't hate them, they're fine. But like when at the end of that movie when he was running through I don't think it was meant to elicit laughter on my part, but it totally did.
Oh, I think it was. In the theater
was
I was
it?
in, everybody started kind of giggling. Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I was dying.
Yeah. Because, yeah, he's just like, oh, shit.
Keanu Reeves does do a really great, like,
yeah.
kind of face.
Anyway. Not going to touch that one.
So that's it for these chapters. So next week we're going to do 2 chapters again, and it's going to be the last time we do 2 chapters. So we'll do 2 chapters next week. We're going to finish out part 4 with Joe Collins of Odds Lane, I believe is that the name of the chapter?
I don't know. I'm not looking at it right now. I just put
Joe
it down.
Collins of Odds Lane is chapter 5, and chapter 6 is Patrick Danville.
Okay.
So we'll finish those out, and then when we get to part 5 and everything moving forward from there, we're just going to do 1 chapter at a time because we're going to have lots to talk about. I mean, we're going to have lots to talk about next week. Don't get me wrong. Next week's going to be a fun episode.
So how much for next week again? Say it again. 1?
2 chapters.
2 chaps. Dosey-do. Okay. So I'm going to say hi to new patrons real quick.
Do it.
This week we have Kayla Harless, JP, Michelle Jeanbrink. I hope I'm saying. There's an umlaut over the A. And Rebecca Gleason. So welcome to all of you. Make sure to join the Facebook group for patrons. And also there is a Discord, which currently Candace is going off in there about Westworld, which she just started. Miles, you really need to get on the Westworld train. You would really like that show.
Dude, I know.
Get on it.
What are we watching? Oh, you know what we're watching now? Sharon just finished reading Neverwhere. So we're watching the BBC miniseries from like '96 right now.
Okay, when you're covering that book for me for the book club.
I am. It's gonna be
September,
good old time. Neverwhere's good. I'm really excited to get to a book in the book club that you're gonna like.
Oh my god, me too. The last 2 have been real duds.
I really hope you like it. I'm pretty sure you will.
Man, the next book coming up is Eleanor and Park, which I have heard not great things from people whose opinion I trust. And the not great things have been real vague, so they haven't really been spoilers, but they have contained language that makes me feel like I'm on my guard. But there's a lot of people. Show? Yeah. And there's a lot of people who seem to really like that book, kind of despite its problems. So, you know, I might, because fucking I know Ready Player One has all kinds of problems, and I still enjoyed it, even though it's like a trash fire of the worst things. But I still really liked it. So I might be fine, but I'm kind of concerned about having 3 books in a row that I didn't really love. And also, I'm going to be adding everybody a new... So the book club will become a bi-weekly feed instead of a monthly feed, because I'm going to be adding a new thing, which is Unspoiled Book Club Childhood Favorites.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about this because there's a lot of classic children's lit that I have not read. Stuff that everybody was made to read in school, but I never did for some reason, either because it wasn't assigned to me or I was able to really fake it well that I read it, even though I didn't. So I've never read like Charlotte's Web or Hatchet or what's the one with the Giver?
Oh yeah, The Giver, sure. I wrote like an essay about The Giver in 8th grade, I think.
Yeah, there's like a lot of books that just everybody's read. Call of the Wild, Lord of the Flies. There's just so many that I've never gotten to, and I'm just, there are certain people for whom books like this are really important. Like, they just were a huge part of their awareness growing up. And I find it really interesting how different we see things when we are raised with different media in our lives. For example, me being excited about hides because I read a ton of fucking Farmer Boy, which I really do think those things are connected. So this is going to be something that I have mostly people who don't co-host any other shows with me guesting on the show to do childhood throwback stuff. So right now I am booked out until April with hosts that none of you have ever seen from me before.
Wow.
And I'm pretty excited about it, to be honest. And the first one in July, I don't think is going to be live because that co-host doesn't seem interested in doing a live show. She was a little bit weird about it. But that is not quite nailed down. The first one that's totally nailed down is in August, which will be with the boys from Overdue. And we're going to be doing Johnny Tremaine, which I read many times and loved, and they have not read, or at least Craig thinks he might have read it, but it was so long ago he doesn't even remember if he has or not.
I don't think I've even heard of that.
Johnny Tremaine, are you serious?
Yeah, what is that?
Oh my god!
Who
It's a historical fiction, and it's set in Boston, right around the time of like the Boston Massacre and the Tea Party and everything. And he's this dude working in a smithy, and he gets injured, and he had been like really gifted, and he has to find his way through the world after this injury that completely alters his future. And there's all this shit going on that he kind of gets like swept up in. And
who wrote it?
I don't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's really famous. And like I said, I read it a ton when I was younger, but I have no idea how it holds up now because I haven't read it in like 10 years, which is kind of the point of the podcast, is to revisit stuff that you loved with a vengeance, but never have gone back to, and see if it does hold up or not. And if it does, why? And if it doesn't, why? And sometimes, even if it doesn't, you still love it. And other times, it's like, it doesn't, and now I'm kind of rethinking how much I cared about this to begin with.
Wow, it's Esther Forbes. It's from 1943.
Yeah, there you go.
That's crazy. That's awesome. I've never heard of this book. I'm looking forward to hearing you talk about it, though. Especially with the guys from Overdue, because they rock.
Yeah, they're awesome, and I haven't gotten a reply from them yet, because I just asked them if they'd be down to do it live on Crowdcast, because I'm hoping to start doing the book clubs live again. That had been a thing that I started off doing, and really fell off because it didn't feel like a lot of people were showing up, and the book clubs were like it was a hassle, all of the like setup for it. But Crowdcast has been behaving itself. I really enjoy the like crowd interaction on certain books, especially when I haven't loved it and I need somebody to be asking me questions to lead the conversation out of the, oh God, and then this, and then this. So
we could use the Crowdcast for Dark Tower.
A little bit, I really think.
Yeah.
Guys, if there's a particular episode that you think would be good for us to do a Crowdcast on, and let me know, and I'll see if Miles is down when we get there.
I mean, I think there is.
Go poll the crowd in your secret chat, you monster.
I might do that. I might do it. I already know. I already know which episode I wanted to live read with you.
Oh boy. Okay.
If you're down for that,
yeah.
Maybe we could Crowdcast that too. I don't know.
I don't think you want to Crowdcast a live read.
Probably not. And we'd have to think about it because like the same chapter came to mind for both.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. We'll see what the preference might be. I think a live read would be really fun, especially because you don't get to be on the other side of live reads that often.
I have not yet one time.
Yeah, so I want to do that.
So yeah, the book, the Johnny Tremaine will be August. September is Redwall. October is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. November is Phantom Toll Booth, which I have never read. December, I don't have it marked down, and I know I have somebody for that, but I have to fill in this chart. January will be The Enchanted Castle, which is by Edith Nesbit, one of my favorite books ever. And the person co-hosting that with me will not have read it. And then Little House in the Big Woods, which I think we'll both have read. It's not going to be a requirement that one of us hasn't read it, but I do think it's more fun if one of us hasn't read it. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about this because I feel like we're all in this place in the world right now where we could use some fucking comfort and distraction and nostalgia in our lives. And there's been a real backlash to like, oh, hey, why don't we make some original shit? We just keep recycling old shit. And I'm like, yeah, the world is fucking terrifying and old shit makes us happy. That's literally all it is. I really think it's like a combo of, is it easy? Yes. But also we go to it and we buy it because we want a fucking safety blanket and a bot, please. I would anyway. Wrap me up and stick me in bed. And I will wake up in 2020. Pretty please.
Well, if you're, I think it's really cool that that you're doing all these with brand new co-hosts. Like, that's just really cool. However, that said, if you want to do one after April, I have a couple of ideas.
All right.
I was, we were talking about Ender's Game a little bit. But if what you're going for is like kind of the shit that made us feel good, Ender's Game is kind of a depressing book in a lot of ways.
It's not even that made us feel, because some of the stories are like, you know, Redwall is sad.
Redwall's, it's kind of.
Mossflower is really the one that's sad.
Mossflower's sad. But
yeah.
I have some other ideas too. So if you ever want to do one of those, let me know because I got some things to throw your way.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm stoked about this because I have been diving into old books that I love on audiobooks lately, and it really has been super comforting. Like, I've been going back through all the Narnia books and stuff, which hit or miss, but it's
Narnia, your mileage may fucking vary.
It really, like, I still stand by The Magician's Nephew. Like, I will stand for that book until the end.
That's a great book.
It's like my favorite ever.
The Horse and His Boy can go fuck itself.
The Horse and His Boy is one of those ones that I'm like, yeah, I know it can, but also that's like my second favorite one. I'm sorry. It really is, though. I love it.
Fucking hate that.
But I get it. I do get it. So, and then the other thing that I'm stoked about is in 2 weeks, Maggie and I are going to be restarting Legion.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Those of you who have not watched Legion, get on that. Because there goes one of the best shows on television.
Yeah.
It's easily the best X-Men property. Like, there's just no.
Have you seen any of The Gifted?
No.
I've heard it's very good. I've never seen it myself. I think Maggie is hit or miss on it from what I've seen.
Okay. Anyway. Well, Maggie is the one that is covering Legion with me.
Yes.
And the first season of Legion is one of the best seasons of TV ever. There's a few spots where we were kind of like, what? But mostly it's amazing. And even when it's not amazing, it's so strange that there's a ton to talk about and theorize about. And we had some of our best combos. And a lot of people have said that's their favorite Unspoiled show.
It's mine.
Legion is?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
That one and fucking Harry Potter, because you and Roshan are delightful.
We are delightful, it's true. Which is why I need to watch fucking Westworld and listen to that.
Fine.
So yeah, Legion will be coming back. Season 2, I have heard like kind of mixed things, but even if it's not great, it's Legion, and I just want to know about it. I can't wait to watch it. So yeah, those are the things that are going on right now. So yeah, Miles, take it away.
All right. Well, you can find me and everything that I do on my website, www.mjschneiderman.com. That contains links to, among other things, the Smash Fiction podcast, where myself and my co-hosts take characters and put them into fictional combat with one another in some kind of task. Not always fighting. Could be racing. Could be eating. Could be seduction. We've done all kinds of weird shit. We're in season 3 of our show right now, as we define it, and season 3 has been pretty fucking nuts. Season 3 has the Phantom of the Opera versus Sweeney Todd. It
Weird.
has Yuri on Ice versus Blades of Glory. It's been a very strange, very fun season. Our most recent offering is one that a lot of fans have been asking us for a long time, which is Darth Vader versus Mewtwo. So that just went up this past Sunday. That is on the Smash Fiction feed right now. In between Smash Fiction episodes, we do we alternate between doing a live action, I guess I should say, actual play RPG podcast called Extraordinary League. And we also do something called Smash Metafiction, which is not the competitive debate format that Smash Fiction is, but rather sort of a collaborative, kind of creative game thing that we do with various fictional characters. There's a few different versions of it, and that will be coming out this coming Sunday. I believe it is we have a few different games that we do, so this will be the 3rd episode of Collaboratory, which is the one where we each bring characters and story elements to the table, and none of us knows like what the other people are bringing, and we all reveal what we brought. So it'll be like a character and like a genre, or a character in a setting, or something like that, and then we have to make a movie out of it. So that's a lot of fun. So that's coming out this Sunday. Also, check out the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, which is the show that I host and produce, that comes out every Friday, and that's a lot of fun. Just like real people telling real stories. Once a month, it's a full recorded live show that we do here in Tucson, where I live, and the rest of the month, it's archived shows, like 10-minute podcast with a story from somebody's life. It's a lot of fun to do. It's a lot of fun to put together. I think I plugged this on the last episode of Dark Tower, but I just want to say it again. The most recent full episode of the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast is called Fake, and it's fucking really good. Because we do all these things on themes, and so the Fake themed show was just truly tremendous stuff. So
Nice.
Go check that out. And again, you know, I'm really invested in that particular project. I think it's really good. I think a lot of people, like, even if you're not from Tucson, I think you want to hear it. The stories are funny, they're beautiful, they're sad, they're relatable. They're everything you want stories to be. I think our show is really great, and we're still kind of trying to get actual traction behind it for a variety of reasons. So if you listen to it and enjoy it, please leave us a review. Please tell your friends about it. Share our stuff on social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Odyssey Storytelling, and visit the website odysseystorytelling.com. And if you happen to be in Tucson, then come to the live events. If you want to know more about it, you can always DM me or message me on Facebook. And then beyond that, it's not like I have a science fiction blog or anything, so I don't know why I would plug that, to be honest. Natasha said something earlier today about, like, wanting me to do a plug for a science fiction blog about Hugo Award winners, which it's not something I have, so I don't really know what you're talking about. I do know that whatever drugs you were on when you said that, I would like a sample of.
I am pretty sure that's what you wanted to write Ender's Game on, right? On that blog. Was that it? Is that where Ender's Game is going? Because it's super depressing, and that's what the blog's for. It's depressing stuff.
Ender's Game, I think, actually did win a Hugo Award. I know for a fact that the sequel, Speaker for the Dead, the best fiction novel ever written, in my opinion, definitely won a Hugo Award. So I definitely, in theory, will be able to write about those books someday. if I ever get free time again in my life and am able to continue working on the sci-fi blog, it's, you know, it would be so much easier if I wasn't in, like, mid-book when this hiatus had to happen. I'm writing about Double Star, which was the first Robert Heinlein book to win a Hugo, and I had two blog entries, and then, I had one blog entry on Double Star, and then a long time passed, and I wrote another blog entry, which was prefaced with this long apology about how I would never leave it that long again. And that was in September, and I haven't written the third and final blog entry yet. So no more. I'm in a very George R.R. Martin place with that blog. It's like, no more fucking promises. I will get to it eventually when I have the time.
Yep.
Right now I am in a place where if it's not unspoiled and I'm not getting paid for it, then it's not going to be a thing I devote time to.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, unfortunately the blog had to be a casualty of that. But I do really hope to get it up and running again. And if you want to check out the stuff I've written on it before, the website is Universes of the Mind, universesofthemind.com. I will get back to it eventually. I'm very committed to it. I just, right now, it's not the time when I could do that. I'm hoping that by the end of the summer, I'll really be in a place where I can start blogging regularly there again, because I really enjoy doing it. But, unfortunately, enjoying doing something is not a prerequisite for getting paid to do it, so... yeah, I think that's it for me. I'm hoping that, like I always say, I've got stuff, you know, in the works, and hopefully I'll be able to plug it at some point at a later date, but I cannot talk about it now.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
All right, well, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed the show. I hope that you're excited about upcoming stuff, because I am. And we love you.
I'm excited. We do.
You got real quiet all of a sudden. What happened?
What? Really?
Yeah.
Am I still quiet?
Yeah, you're way quieter now. Even the background noise that you had going on, like the white noise, is gone.
It's the, you know what? It's the air conditioning, and I refuse. Yeah, okay.
There you are.
I can't. It's too hot to turn off the air conditioning here.
No, it's fine. I don't mind the white noise. It was just weird how it suddenly was not there. You know how that is? You don't notice the noise until it's gone, and then you're like, wait. I do want to do a shout out to Neo Zect from the United States, who left a review titled 5 stars, I like the cold, in all caps. And then the body of that read, I like Maggie. Which will be very confusing for listeners who have not yet gotten to the 7th book coverage and are wondering when Maggie joins the show. But nevertheless, I really appreciate it, and we are now up to 39 reviews on this show. Nice. So thank you guys so much, and I'm looking forward to reaching around 40.
Let's get that number 40. But you know what? Wait, hold on. So you said we have 39?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that adds up to 12. I want a 19 number. Like, I really... If we got, like...
you listen, you figure this shit out on your own time. I'm wrapping this up.
No,
listen.
We're doing it. We're doing this.
Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next week with 2 more chapters. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.